I am Elena, an interior designer who believes that life, much like a room, requires perfect symmetry, balance, and intentional design. For 5 years, my world with Julian was a curated masterpiece. He is a celebrated architect, a man who appreciates structure just as much as I do. Or so I believed. My home is a showroom of our shared vision, the velvet curtains, the minimalist furniture, and the guest room that has sat as a hollow, silent nursery for 2 years. Every month, the negative pregnancy test is a harsh, jagged line that ruins the composition of our perfect life. But today, that tiny white stick wasn't the only thing that shattered. I sat in Dr. Araz's office, the sterile, biting smell of sanitizer clinging to my skin. I braced myself for the familiar, sympathetic maybe next time from the doctor. Instead, he looked at me with eyes heavy with a terrifying, profound guilt. He didn't offer comfort. He checked his watch, mumbled something about an urgent surgical emergency, and retreated into the hallway. In his haste, he left his tablet active on the desk, the screen glowing like a beacon in the dim office. Curiosity is a dangerous instinct, but it was the only one I had left. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I tapped the glass, and saw a reality that didn't fit into my blueprint at all. I leaned in, my heart doing a stuttering, erratic rhythm against my ribs as the screen flickered to life. It wasn't a medical chart. It was a live, high-definition security feed from the annual Innovators of the City Gala happening at the Grand Plaza downtown. My breath caught in my throat. There, standing center stage under a warm, golden spotlight, was Julian. He was wearing the custom-tailored charcoal suit I had meticulously ironed for his supposed, remote architectural site visit in Seattle. But he wasn't standing there alone. He was being introduced as the sole, visionary founder of a major urban development firm, a project he had never mentioned to me. Standing beside him, with her hand resting possessively on his arm, was a woman the news crawler identified as Mrs. Clara Vance. My Julian. My husband. My life. Everything I thought I knew about our shared existence dissolved in an instant. According to that glowing screen, I didn't exist at all. I wasn't his partner. I was a ghost inhabiting a space he had long ago vacated. He hadn't just been cheating, he had architected an entire second life, complete with a different wife, and a social standing that had no room for me. As the crowd applauded, I watched the lie take root, realizing that every memory I cherished was merely a design flaw in his masterful, cold-blooded deception. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse into a heap of tears. Instead, a chilling, mechanical calm settled over me. I walked out of that clinic and drove home, my mind working like a machine stripping back the wallpaper of my own life. I began to look at our house not as a home, but as a crime scene. I tore apart the order I had spent 5 years perfecting. In his study, behind a hidden, false panel in his custom drafting desk, I found the evidence of his architectural double life. There were 2 phones, 2 passports, and a marriage license from a county I had never even visited. The signature on the document wasn't forged, it was a clever, calculated mirror image, designed to fool anyone, but a designer who understands exactly how a pen moves across paper. He was a professional, and I was just a shadow in his blueprints. My heart felt heavy, but my resolve was sharpening into something dangerous. I realized that Julian had not just lied about his whereabouts, he had manufactured a fake reality to keep his finances and reputation perfectly segregated. I didn't wait for him to return from his business trip. I began to trace his digital footprint, cross-referencing his corporate filings with the dates he was supposedly with me. I wasn't just a wife anymore. I was a detective exposing the cracks in his perfect foundation. I didn't wait for him to come home. I prepared. I went to the gala that night, wearing a black silk gown that felt more like armor than a dress. When I walked into that ballroom, the sight of him, laughing with his other wife, didn't hurt anymore. It just made me cold, a detached observer of his own undoing. I approached them as the cameras flashed, the ambient noise of the crowd fading into a distant hum. Julian's face went white, his glass of champagne slipping from his hand as he saw me standing there, a ghost from his private life crashing his public vanity. I didn't need to shout to cause a scene, my presence was enough. I opened the leather portfolio I was carrying, which contained the real documents, the proof of our home, and the damning evidence of his calculated deception. I placed it on the podium, right in front of the press and the investors he was trying to charm. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute, louder than any argument could ever be. Clara, his other wife, looked at the photos of our wedding and then back at the man who had promised her the same future he had already sold to me. In that moment, the empire Julian built on lies began to collapse, not with a bang, but with the quiet, devastating sound of the truth. He tried to scramble an excuse, but the doors were already locked. I had tipped off the authorities an hour prior, knowing exactly how he would react to the pressure of an exposed fraud. As the police led him out in cuffs, his face was twisted in a cowardly, desperate rage. He had spent years managing two distinct lives, but he forgot the most important rule of design: the foundation matters more than the facade. He had built his empire on shifting sand, and it was only a matter of time before the structure collapsed under the weight of his own hubris. I sat on a quiet park bench the next morning as the city began to wake. My phone was dead, my accounts were frozen, and the empty nursery back home felt like a relic of a past that was never truly mine. Clara found me there shortly after. We didn't talk about him, we talked about how we were going to survive. As I watched the sunrise, the negative pregnancy test I had received just yesterday suddenly made sense. It wasn't a tragedy or a failure, it was my ultimate exit. It was the moment the balance shifted back in my favor. Julian was a master of blueprints, but I was the one who finally reclaimed the space. I was free to build a life that wasn't a blueprint of lies.